I want to say hello and welcome. My name is Rebecca Davis, and I am the Career Services Manager at UAGC. I will be the host of this session, Power of University Clubs and Fostering Belonging. Also joining us is Kingsley Jackson, Academic Resolution Specialist, serving as tech host for this session. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Dawn Jarvis, Associate Faculty at the University of Arizona Global Campus. Dawn, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next slide, please. Through club participation, students find spaces to connect with like-minded peers, express their identities, and grow collaboratively, often developing leadership skills. For many students, club involvement becomes a central aspect of their overall development. In this context, belonging refers to the emotional and social bonds formed through extracurriculars, including acceptance, support, inclusion within a shared interest group. Clubs create a structured environment that encourages students to interact meaningfully outside academic settings, building relationships and fostering community. In addition to personal growth, clubs enhance student engagement and leadership, allowing students to extend learning beyond the classroom. Clubs also shape campus culture by promoting inclusivity and helping marginalized students overcome systematic barriers, creating a more welcoming environment. Next slide, please. University clubs are essential to fostering a sense of belonging and supporting students' academic and social success. Recent studies indicate that students report a stronger connection to campus, enhancing their motivation, engagement, and persistence. Club participation has been associated with improved academic performance, higher retention rates, and better social and emotional well-being. Clubs also promote intercultural friendships, with 45% of international students reporting a greater sense of belonging through these activities. This engagement not only reduces dropout rates, but also improves overall satisfaction. Inclusive club environments are especially beneficial for underrepresented groups, offering vital support and contributing to their overall success on campus. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at the model of student integration and social identity theory, and the role that these can play in fostering the sense of belonging. According to the model of student integration, academic and social engagement are vital to student retention and success within clubs as they bridge a connection to students and their institution. Social identity theory further explains that group affiliations strengthens identity to the community and to the individual, within clubs providing spaces for shared values and meaningful connections, which is especially valuable for underrepresented students. These frameworks illustrate how university clubs support students' academic, social, and personal growth while enriching campus culture. Next slide, please. Let's look at some key findings within the literature. A study conducted in 2024 by Soliski et al. Found that clubs promoting social and cultural engagement help students, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds, build peer connections and sense of community. Club participation is also associated with increased psychological well-being and promotes essential skills such as leadership and teamwork, which enhances career perspectives. Clubs also help students develop social capital, which opens up career opportunities. Considering these insights, university clubs are pivotal platforms for fostering students' sense of belonging and personal growth. To further explore how these spaces can optimize, Sharisa Arnold, Site Club President at UAGC, will discuss best practices for identifying and implementing effective strategies within university clubs.
All right, thank you so much. Can we get the next slide? Next slide, please. All right, so looking at defining inclusivity or inclusion, one main concept behind integrating a sense of belonging is prioritizing concepts of inclusion in our clubs and organizations. So the APA, the American Psychological Association, defined inclusion as using affirmation, celebration, and appreciation for various styles and approaches, allowing all individuals to express their whole selves. A study by Mahoney and other researchers found in their report that belonging is important in student life, especially as a success factor, which has provided specific keys to creating an inclusive and belonging environment for students. These keys can be integrated into university clubs and organizations to create inclusive spaces for all students, alumni, and faculty. Next slide, please. So looking at some of our best practices in fostering inclusivity, especially within our university clubs, we're looking at like UAGC already has done some of the work by integrating objectives of diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the university's practices. However, we can break down the practices to a subcultural level within the school, such as in clubs and in organizations. For one, it is easy to forget how lonely it can feel when someone initially begins an online program. So fostering inclusivity through clubs and organizations is an important component of creating a space for everyone. Looking at our online sphere, it can feel a little restrictive. It can feel like we don't really have that one-on-one contact. So it's important to find that community through our clubs or what we have available to us through UAGC or any other online or school program. So orientations and information sessions, these sessions can include team building, games, informal chats, networking opportunities, or general information on how to engage within the club and how to stay updated on events and activities. So we want to make sure that we are including activities that bring people together. We want to find common grounds with each other, and we want to build on that common ground. We want to make things fun and inviting and interactive. And we also want to create networking opportunities, especially for those who are coming into undergraduate programs who might not have as much of a sense of direction in where they want to go and what types of connections that they can make. And so our clubs and organizations can provide that basis. And so creating these orientations and information sessions for our clubs can also emphasize belonging from the beginning of joining the club. And also we can ensure that we're fostering inclusivity through meetings and different events. So those events and activities can create active listening, and we can make sure that we're giving people the time to speak. Something that I always like to do in a lot of my meetings is make sure that people have a space to make themselves be known, making sure that everybody has an option to be heard if they have something to say. So this also will help individuals to feel heard and respected, as I said, and it allows us to friendship build. We can find connections with people that we might feel are like-minded. We might find people who we really take to their ideas very well and we kind of gravitate towards them. So you never know, you might build a professional friendship or a professional connection through your clubs and organizations. Next slide, please. So looking at our keys of inclusivity, we are looking at collaboration, creativity, communication, and networking. Those should all be promoted within our clubs. These are key components that's going to help us build a sense of belonging and a sense of community with others who are sharing our same hobbies. We're also looking at support, perspective, opportunity, and community as solid tools that come from utilizing the above keys. So we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities. We have the intention of creating a good, solid community. And we also want to make sure that we're providing support resources. So something that I always like to make sure that people are aware of in the Site Club per se is that UAGC has a wealth of resources. They have so many things available to us that it will help motivate us to succeed and push us towards achieving our goals. So Amiel did some research that supported self-efficacy, self-esteem, social acceptance, conflict resolution, and empathy as usual results from integrating inclusivity and cooperative learning. And cooperative learning is a model as well from Amiel, who these practices are beneficial through utilizing smaller groups to internalize subject-specific concepts and social skills, which I think is like the perfect kind of framework to consider during organizing our clubs and organizations and our events and our activities. And one of those really big examples that I'm going to use is the recent beginning of the Site Club's book club. You know, we started this, I think, right before the beginning of this summer, and we have really created a nice, solid, you know, not too big of a group, but small enough for everyone to be very familiar with each other and for us to all be able to have conversations about the books that we're doing. So I think that it's very important that we're considering frameworks such as cooperative learning. The Site Club, so how does the Site Club do it? What exactly do? We do more than just the book club. We have coffee clatches, which if you're not familiar, it's basically like an informal coffee clatch or coffee chat. I like to equate it to the fireside chat that UAGC has every now and then. And we choose a psychological topic and we decide to expand upon it in an informal type of setting. But we also have monthly meetings and we have quarterly newsletters, and we also have a yearly symposium. So we have several opportunities for our members and other like-minded professionals to be able to come together and create that sense of community. So, but how does this benefit our clubs and organizations exactly? How does this lead into that? Well, Dr. Roseanne Bensley, a UAGC Associate Faculty for Gen 101, will recognize the benefits of joining university clubs.
Thank you so much, Charissa. I really appreciate that. So we're going to move to the next slide, please. There we go. Awesome. So we have presented a lot of great data on the value of clubs and membership. And I want to speak a little bit anecdotally from my life experience and what I've observed. I'm a first-generation college student. I have been in higher education my entire career, which is over 40 years. And I can say specifically that everything that's presented is actually very correct. Students need to feel a connection. The students that I've encountered both at UAGC and in other platforms need to feel value. That value can come from a peer, it can come from a faculty member, but somebody needs to provide that student with the exposure to what clubs are available, how do they get involved, and what are the benefits behind it. Because our students at UAGC or any online student are adult learners. They are already overwhelmed with family, work, and the fear of being a student, that fear of failure. But as we have shown, if we can connect them to something, Aston, as you will see here in 1984, years ago, and even going forward, there is evidence that if you connect the student, they will persist to graduation, they will stay in the program, and they will see the value of the people who are encouraging and supporting them. So there is total proof and evidence that involvement is a positive reinforcement to helping the student feel that they can be a great student. It will expose them to perfecting their leadership skills. It will unlock so many things inside of them that they may not have gone after on their own. Let's go to the next slide. I know Vanessa is in our audience today, and I want to acknowledge her and the folks that run UAGC Connect, because we have 43 clubs and active communities at UAGC. And I know there are active communities at many universities, but specifically UAGC does provide a very welcoming and open environment to give students a chance to feel important and provide them with that support that they need. As you can see, they do annual data. They understand the value of our students getting involved, and they have seen how students have taken action outside of the club and done things related to social justice, mental health, well-being. And since Vanessa is in the audience, I do welcome your thoughts and if you would want to share any at some point in the program. But as a Gen 101 instructor, I see our students from day one. They're excited, they're scared, and then by week 2, they start feeling overwhelmed. Can I do this? I'm having trouble with technology. Other life events happen. But the ones who stick it out are the ones who've had somebody say, we got your back, you can do this, and providing them with outlets for their personal success. My other career was in career services. I worked with employers all across America. They look at resumes, but they gravitate to people who are involved in clubs and organizations because they know as a student, you do an assignment, you take a test, but in a club, you actually are utilizing your skill set in what we call a laboratory. You're practicing public speaking, you're practicing writing skills, teamwork, communication. There is so much value and benefits to being involved in a club that it's just remarkable that these students are excelling way beyond those who only go to school. So as a faculty member, what can you do? As a staff member, what can you do? Be aware of what's out there. Look at UAGC Connect, read the Student Affairs newsletter, read the Chronicle, know what our university or any university has to offer for students, and be the GPS, be the guidepost. Direct those students to things that you feel they would benefit from, because they may not seek that out on their own. But we can provide them with that partnership, that awareness, and through the connections that we're building for the student, they will stay in your program and they will eventually be a graduate of your program. So I'm excited about the value of clubs, and I'm excited about what we do at UAGC because the staff behind the scenes are phenomenal. Champs Mentoring Program, if you don't know about that, it's an opportunity for students to be partnered with a peer mentor and give them a little more one-on-one coaching and guidance and support so that they can excel in what they're doing. So with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Kimberly Bao. Kimberly is in the process of becoming Dr. Kimberly Bao. I think she had her exam or her final project today. So I'm going to go on a limb and say you are Dr. Kimberly Bao, who is a licensed professional counselor, a dance and movement therapist, and also a sport and performance consultant. What a lovely combination of talent, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to offer us next.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Next slide, please. So just a heads up, just got sick, so I'm trying my best to have a voice. So if I go mute myself, it's because I don't think you all want to hear me cough. So I do apologize in advance. Okay, so what I want to start with is something that I actually did, something that I included in my master's work when I did my master's, and this is sense of community. This word has been used a couple times, and McMillan and Chavez actually developed a great framework that is worth looking at and coming up with and breaking down. And I think it pairs very nicely with what Teresa had to offer us as well. So the 4 components: membership, influence, fulfillment of needs, and emotional connection, right? So membership is that sense of belonging, right? Have that sense of membership with a community. Influence. So this is actually something to think about too. Bi-directional influence. So members of a community need to feel like they have some influence on their community, and their community does have some influence on them. Right. And I think we've heard a couple different examples of how that could potentially work in clubs for my fellow colleagues and presenters. So, and then fulfillment of needs. A need is getting met. And again, this has been alluded to as well, like what need does that community member have? And how is a club, in this case, helping to meet that need? Is there a need for connection? Is there a need for resources, right? So the need can potentially expand, and I apologize. You can hear my phone. I forgot to put it on silent. I do apologize. And then emotional connection, right? There's an emotional investment in the club in this case, right? There's some sort of connection. I feel like I have a connection maybe to Dr. Jarvis, who's involved in the Human Services Club. And if like I can go reach out to Dr. Jarvis, right? So something that keeps you there and grounded. So the other piece I want to lay down too in terms of building supportive and connective communities is from the lens of suicide prevention, supported belonging. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with Thomas Joiner's work. Big fan of his work. It's very much used in suicide prevention, and he talks about thwarted belonging as a feeling of disconnection from others or lack of reciprocity and caring. So we, in a university that's online, tend to be far apart, right? Like we know that's a potential limitation, right? I have, when I was working with CAPSA, one of my fellow board members was all the way in Asia, right? And so we come from different places and different worlds, different experiences. And so part of what helps us stay connected and hopeful is working against that kind of feeling of thwarted belonging, feeling like there's someone who cares about us. And I think too, when people show up in clubs, they're showing up because they care, right? They care about their community, they care about the school, they care about something, right? And I will use student governance a couple times in this because that is in the works, student governance, which I'm excited to share and use as an example as well, right? That you belong here. You're important. You matter. We want you here with us, right? Talking about building connections, building outside and enjoying each other's company, like surviving writing a dissertation together. Like I know I would not have survived half of it if I hadn't found some great people to like have reach out in my back pocket, like, okay, I need to commiserate for 2 seconds, right? So there are definitely these benefits from engaging and building those connective communities. So thinking in those lines, really think strategically when you're working on building a supportive and connective community within a club, right? Be strategic, right? Think long term. I mean, Teresa gave us some good examples too about using the book clubs, things like that. And think about how they benefit the students, the faculty, the staff, right? What are you getting out of it? How does that benefit from them? And then how can you potentially weave that into something else? Like in the previous couple slides, like people getting jobs in the future, right? More likely to get jobs. So being very strategic when you think about it, having a reason. So I joke with my clients, like if I ask you to do something, like if I ask you to, like I'm doing an intervention and I'm like, okay, I'd like you to jump on one foot. I better be able to tell you why I ask you to jump on one foot, right? Most people laugh at that, right? Because, 1 foot, right? But the point is that, right, I need to have a why. So know your why behind what you're doing. And then we've heard a couple of different examples of opportunities for interaction. The one that I'm going to use is Kind Hub. Still working on getting that off the ground a little bit, but it does provide an opportunity also not only for connection within the university system, but also to connect a student with outside resources as well, because there are resources out in their community and there's chances for them to get involved. So Kind Hub actually provides students, staff, and faculty an opportunity to go in and log volunteer hours, random acts of kindness, right? So it encourages that connection, not only within the school and outside the school, right? Again, thinking on the more global terms, because there are multiple opportunities in multiple spaces. Next slide, please. Okay, so implementing inclusive activities, right? Connection is super important. And there's some things we also need to think about. So this may sound like opposite, but it is actually very connected. So intersectionality was a term coined by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. Mostly it came out of the legal system, legal area. But what she talks about is that people come with multiple identities. So for example, one identity that I hold is someone who identifies as white, identify as female, right? I identify as educated. You know, the list can go on. I'm a mother. Right? So I hold these different pieces that I then bring forth into my interactions with people. Right? And part of building connection and also understanding people and implementing inclusive activities is seeing them for who they are and all their identities and all their glory and all their beauty, right? So looking at that and saying, you know what? The students here at UAGC love this topic, maybe it be psychology, human services, and using a club to bring them together, and also give them a safe place where they can bring forth those multiple identities. Again, building connection that way as well, where they feel safe, right, to do that, right? That's a huge thing. If someone feels safe, they're going to bring more of themselves and bring more of that connection, right? So something to think about. And then as leaders, whether you're on the board of a club or in the future, student governance, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to plug that a few times while I'm doing this because it's such a cool thing. Look at it that we all hold lenses, right? And have our own biases. So the way we approach developing inclusive activities means also taking a step back and looking at our own biases, our own lenses, and say, okay, well, I am fortunate to be able to have access to stable internet, which is great. I'm very thankful for that. That is not the case for every student, right? Some don't have a roof over their head. Some do. So how do you take that knowledge and say, okay, you want to do something that really provides people the opportunity to be involved in a club when there's different circumstances in multiple people's life, right? I think that's really, really, really fundamental. So, and then thinking about accessibility and accountability for one's own assumptions, right? And that's kind of what I was just talking about. Really taking accountability and being honest about what you bring as a leader to a club. All right, so fun little activity. You've listened to me talk long enough. Being a dance therapist, I have to do something where I engage people. Sorry, y'all. All right, so quick question, and you can answer in the chat if you're feeling brave. If you just want to write something down in front of you, totally fine. But I'm curious, what do you know about the students at UAGC? Right? Do you know what do you know? Do you know the demographics? What do you know? So just take a brief moment, write some things down. Like I said, you can put it in the chat or write them down in front of you. But what do you know? And there are, if you go to UAGC's website, you can kind of cheat a little bit and look up some of the statistics, right? So there's some resources out there for you. Let's see. I like that. They're all here because they want to be or they wouldn't be, like that one. Adult learners who most have full-time jobs. Great one. So interesting, right? Like these are some things to think about. And these are just two examples of what about UAGC students, right? There's a lot more, right? So it's worth even asking a question or two. Like, what do we know about our student body? Or what do we think we know, right? What assumptions do we bring to the table as well? So thank you to my brave volunteers who put something in the chat. I really appreciate you. And another one, students are busy who need this online environment to thrive successfully while holding down their lives. Love it. And then they all have dreams to achieve, right? Those are beautiful, right? I love that. Potentially, yes, we have the military club, right? Think about the military club, the active military members that we have, and their spouses. I want to acknowledge their spouses and their partners as well. Working adults, tried school before, but now trying again, scared, desire to advance in their career through education. Yes, these are awesome, right? I love that we had to bring a military, right? And if you think about the number of clubs that UAGC has that have different topics, that's a whole other beautiful thing to look at as well, because there's different communities within UAGC as well. So fantastic, all. Thank you so much. Oh, coming from all over the world. Yes, exactly. Coming from all over the world, right? So that means we get the benefit of engaging with different cultures too, and learning about different cultures and learning to engage, right? I love it. So there's so many beautiful opportunities to when you think about building an inclusive clubs and activities. Think about some of these things. Yeah, these are great. These are fantastic. And then last thing for me today, right? Including student voice as best as possible, right? So this gets to the point of like, why do we have student leaders in our clubs? Like, why is that important, right? Because these things impact us, right, as students. And that's also why, student governance is a thing too, right? Because, right, a lot of these things, like a lot of like executive decisions impact students, but we want to have a voice in that. So ask people too, right? Like you can ask your club members, what do you want to see, right? Like ask a question, right? What do you want to see? What could be improved? What do you dislike, right? Ask a question. Sometimes it's hard to get some feedback. It is still worth the effort and the time to engage your club members. They're the ones who help the club and survive and thrive. So engage them. We have one more from the question earlier. How to start school without a PC? Yes. Exposing them to resources to pay for college so they can earn a scholarship to pay for these resources. Students going to a library to use the internet and nice computers. Yes. Libraries, hub of like resources and community connection, right? Especially in like rural communities, the library is where it's at. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. So yes, libraries are a fantastic one. All right, so with that, I made it through without coughing. I'm very thankful. On to our next presenter, who is an associate faculty member here, and I actually got to know through the Human Services Club, Dr. Jonathan Oke, and I hand it over to you.
Thank you. So far, everyone has presented so well. It's awesome to hear from all of you. What I think so impactful about what we're hearing today is most of us have some form of connection with clubs. I remember, like Kimberly said, meeting her because I was president of the Human Service Club, and I didn't get to stay there very long because I got hired on as a UAGC staff. But I learned a lot through the short time that I was there. Hearing from all of you, we've kind of gathered that, there's a sense of belonging, there's needs that need to be met, there's individuals through the educational process, through their journeys that want to feel valued, they want to feel like they're a part of a community. And what better than to have them a part of clubs? I didn't understand what clubs were to begin with. I didn't understand the value of a club until I got into a club. I was intimidated to become a part of a club because in most cases, when you become a part of a club, there's a leader and everyone else has to listen to the leader. From being a part of clubs, what I've learned is that everybody's input is valued. And when we get to this section of decolonizing our perspectives, if you'll go to the next slide, we get to see clearly that I think through everything that we've heard today, we're going to be able to articulate the benefits of utilizing a non-Eurocentric perspective on how these community clubs can be leaders in the efforts to include other perspectives. But what is this that we're looking at as far as decolonization? Some people have placed it as rethinking the sort of relationships that exist here in our world. There's others who have depicted decolonization as going back to ceremonies, meaning knowing where you've come from, your history, and how your history has shaped you. There's even some that have brought it out as the right and the ability to practice self-determination. And the areas of life through cultural or psychological, even economic freedoms. So we've come to realize that decolonization, it's used in large movements, it's used in rallies, protesting. We've seen it in large scales. But how does it apply to us here as members who are trying to do our best to make sure that people have this sense of belonging when it comes to our university clubs? One of the things that I do want to say is that regarding interacting, if you ever find yourself in a circumstance where you're kind of in a position in life where you're next to someone who's maybe harmful or racist or has settler views, it's your choice to remain around them or not, or even speak up. And I think what I've gathered from a lot of these clubs is that we get to share what we feel without there being any type of harmful or discriminatory beliefs, whether they're explicit or implicit. And I love this about our group, especially from the human services. I'm sorry that I'm partial to human services. That's what the club that I was in, and also what I teach now, is that we're able to gather these ideas. We're able to allow ourselves to see that at times many people, because of what we're used to, we're rooted in a colonial framework. But we're trying to dismantle and challenge that. We're trying to get people to recognize that what you have to share as far as ideas, it's going to be heard. And it starts within our club setting. I think we have great staff who push that with our students that, hey, get involved in a club so you can find out how your voice is very important. This gives us the door to opportunities for accountability and growth. And of course, I wouldn't know people like Kimberly. Honestly, when I was intimidated to go into the human services aspect, as far as club, you wouldn't think I'm a person that would be intimidated, but I was really afraid because I'm kind of where Kimberly is. Back then, I was already teaching at UAJC under the undergrad level, and I was in the doctoral trying to finish my dissertation. And in the midst of that, it's like, does anybody know what I'm even going through? Does anybody know how they're going to be able to connect with me? Well, man, guess what? I met my supervisor in my club, Dr. Ballard. And I was amazed in that moment that I didn't no longer have to be intimidated because what we had to share was important to them. You can go to the next slide. Have y'all ever come across, and you go to the next one as well, where it talks about everyone has a bad idea. Is there anybody in this group that's ever thought you had the bestest of idea and you could not wait to share it with the group, and you were going to think that everybody was going to be behind you with that idea and be like, wow, that's the bestest idea. And then you put that idea out there only to come and find out that that idea, it really didn't work at all. What I love about our groups is I'm realizing that everyone's ideas are heard. I remember a lady one time saying to me, she's like, me and my husband came up with this business and we thought it was the best business that would ever take place. And the business idea was to build ramps for people who had wheelchairs. And she's like, we put a blueprint together. We had all of our information together. We had all the financial paperwork together, only to find out that we only sold one ramp in 1 year. And I came to realize after hearing this is like everyone may think that their ideas are great. And there may be people who feel like their ideas aren't so good, but they end up being the best of ideas. This is what I've learned through the university clubs is that everyone who starts to share ideas, no matter what they are, everyone looks at it as a great idea. Everyone makes everyone feel accepted. That's all I've been hearing today is these clubs, they form a sense of belonging and people feel valued and needs are being met. And that's one of the things that happened to me first is I truly felt like I was making a difference with something like a club. And I never would have thought about that belonging to the Human Services Club, somebody was actually listening and then the ideas were being implemented. And once the ideas were being implemented, it made me feel like I was a part of the community. It made me feel like I was involved. I'm part of faculty council now. I'm part of, being a professor, associate professor here at the university. And guess what? It all started with feeling like I belonged to a club. And I never would have thought belonging to a club would have placed me in the position that I am now to now tell students how important it is to be involved in a club setting, because there is this sense of belonging. There is this sense of feeling like you become alive, because some of you know this. In the end of your journey, when school's getting closer to being done, it almost seems like it's so far away, and then you have no connection. And then you try to be a mentor to someone when in reality, you need someone to mentor you just so you can get to the finish line. And that's where I was at this point in my life, entering into the Human Services Club and realizing that I did have a voice. So my message for you today is feel like you do belong. Feel like there is a part of you that is being heard. And I love that this topic came out of fostering that atmosphere, this club atmosphere, and it bringing on a sense of belonging, because guess what? I lived it. And I know that some of you are currently living it, like Kimberly. We started there together, if you remember, at the Human Service Club. And I never thought anything would come of it. I thought it was taking up our time. And sometimes it felt discouraging to show up. And there was only 3 or 4 people in the group. But some of those groups were the best days, because those 3 or 4 people in those groups, we were connecting some way, somehow on that day. Everybody felt the same, or everybody could connect, and it was truly a life-changing experience. So just to end with my section before we go on to questions, is just allow yourself to know this, that when you enter into this club atmosphere, there is somebody listening. They are going to value your opinion. They are going to value your idea. Don't ever be afraid to throw your idea out there. Don't ever be afraid to think that your idea won't be heard and even be used. So have the courage just to throw it out there. I'd rather tell you this: throw it out there. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't work. But if it does, try again, because eventually, because you're valued and you're part of a community and your needs are now being met, and now you know what it feels like to have a sense of this belonging, you're going to realize in time that you have made a difference. So thank you for your time in this short session.
If there's an opportunity to read the chat, there's been quite a bit of conversation taking place there as well, and hopefully that will be included in the recording for this program.
And Jonathan, just so you know, starting with just a few members was great. And now we're over 600 members. So yay.
Yes, that's the beautiful part. Yes.
That's the beautiful part. So me creating the Human Services Club was totally worth it.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Are we ready to open it up for Q&A?
Yes, we are.
All right, let's do it. And like Roseanne said, there's some beautiful comments in the chat, and I do want to read one of hers to kick off our Q&A section. But she said, if we feel we belong, we stay in our job, stay in our school, and stay with people who care about you. Students said they wanted to quit, but someone told them that they could do this or they can have a second chance. They discovered that they had value, and they ended up completing that assignment, and they did not quit school. So I thought that was so beautiful and such a good way to encompass your message today. I'm going to give it a few minutes. If you have questions, I encourage you to put them in the chat. This group is available to answer your questions, but I had a couple that I jotted down as you were going through, and it was the point was brought up about being intimidated to join a club. And so my question to each of you, or if someone wants to take this, is how can we as staff and faculty encourage involvement in these clubs? And for students who are currently in this session, what advice would you give them to get involved?
I know that the way that it helped me overcome being intimidated is I remember Dr. Ballard reaching out to me and asking me several times if I would become a part of the club. And that was awesome is when she did it more than one time. So when somebody does it more than one time, that kind of lets you know, like, hey, this person must really think something of me to want me to be involved. And that's what it was, is to allow our faculty to know, to not just give up, maybe just sending one message and then leaving it at that, to continually be consistent with encouraging students to get involved in clubs.
As a faculty member, I was the one that created the Human Services Club, and I created it because I'm a graduate at UAGC. I graduated with my PhD, and there wasn't like at that point in time going through my program, I didn't even know there was clubs. So I didn't even know that was a resource. And so I felt very disconnected and isolated when I was going through my program. So as a faculty member, that's what made me decide to create the Human Services Club, because I discovered once I did find that there was clubs, that there was no Human Services Club specifically for human services members. So one thing that I do is that I share my experience with students. And then I share the resources with them, like the resource with them and the benefits with them of being part of the club. And I find that to be pretty beneficial. And so I know that's how a lot of students that I've found have gone to join on. I know a few students have gone to join that way. And then having other students like Kimberly, I know, has reached out to, like, we use other members to help recruit and to share their stories, which is very helpful.
Yep. So I'll piggyback off of piggyback after on what Dr. Jarvis was saying, right? Allow students to reach out and connect to other students too, right? Sometimes that also is really beneficial because, again, I loved hearing Jonathan talk about his experience, right? That's a really beautiful way to connect on a human level. The other thing too is around the Human Services Club, Dr. Jarvis happened to be my professor right around that time. And I remember very clearly the care and the thought that she put into responding to like each of our discussion posts, like finding a TED Talk for us to like go deep in our understanding, for which I very much appreciate and still continue to appreciate. So thank you, Dr. Jarvis. But it was that extra step too, and knowing that Dr. Jarvis was going to be part of that club, that also made it a little easier too. Like, oh, this person cares, right? So taking those extra things that sometimes feel like extra work actually make the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm. To segue off of Kimberly, sometimes our nature is to think that we have to build a network in order to make it to a certain spot. Well, with this club structure, it wasn't about building a network. It was actually about building friendships and understanding the colleague aspect. And I didn't meet Dr. Jarvis until I got to the Human Services Club, and now we're colleagues. So it's not about networking to get yourself somewhere. It's about networking so you can have a sense of belonging, and then understanding that there are people there that can help you through your journey. And that's exactly what's happened, because now we're chairing dissertations together. I would have never thought that. I would have never thought that I got asked to be a president, and I'm there not even knowing what a president's like in a human service club. We're trying to find out how we can raise money, how we can create events to get people involved. And now I'm teaching students that in life, things may be difficult, but just like she did, I was a UAG student going through my doctoral journey, completed it, and now I'm trying to make sure that students do the same, all from a university club.
As a career professional, I could not have said it better. You know, we talk about the value of networking, and it can seem intimidating. And how do you do that? But like you said, it's about building the relationship, and then the network will grow from there, and you'll see the value. When you're focused on the relationship and not the transaction, it's so much more valuable. Well
Yes, ma'am.
said. All right, so a couple more questions come in. A question from Annie. Can you talk about how students create clubs and how they join clubs virtually?
I came up with the idea, and then I reached out to Vanessa Vanessa's in here as an audience member, so she might be able to give a little bit more specifics, but I just reached out to Vanessa to ask, like, what are the steps that I need to go to? Here's my ideas on how, like, what I'm thinking. And then she provided me with the next steps.
Awesome. And I know for joining virtually, we can drop a link in the chat if there's not already one, but UAGC Connect is where all the UAGC clubs are housed, and you can go through all of those and find out if there's one that resonates with you, if you can connect with, or like Dr. Jarvis said, she had an idea and brought that forward. If there wasn't something, if there was something you're looking for that wasn't there. Roseanne had a comment. Is there a document that describes the mission of each club and who is in charge of the club for questions? How many members in each club and when do they meet? This can help track students to the specific clubs they should consider.
I know UAGC Connect has most of this information. When you go in there, it shows all the different clubs. And when you click on them, I believe there's info about each club. It should show how many members and then who the advisors are.
Yes, and then the acceptance that once you click on it and you ask to be a part of it, you have to be accepted. But normally that's not an issue. Everyone
Yeah.
usually intends to accept their students or the people that want to be a part of it.
UAGC Connect is pretty much like a one-stop shop. It's pretty user-friendly, so.
And I'm not saying this because, of course, this is a part of the teacher and learning conference. I'm really saying this because it was life-changing. The Human Service Club changed my life. And it's been 2.5 years in. I'll be a professor this coming May, 3 years already. So it's gone by that fast. But it all started with the Human Services Club. So students, I don't know how they can get this out there, but students need to know that clubs are life-changing. And there is a fostering of belonging in those human services. Well, let me take that back. In any club that they want to be a part of, not just human services.
I'm
Well, I
gonna,
appreciate the Human Services Club part because let me tell you, I put a lot of work into it.
Yes.
I'm gonna build on top of this a little bit and say you can join more than one club. I want to like make sure that's
Correct.
very clear.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
join more than one club. You can be members of the Human Service Club, Students Inspired by Sports, the Psych Club, right? There's so many clubs and you can be a member of more than one. So you can be as involved as you want. And Vanessa too is also, like I said, I'm gonna put a plug in for Vanessa. Vanessa is awesome.
I would also, sorry, I would also like to add that I'm the president of the Psych Club, but I believe I am also a part of the Human Services Club. I'm also a part of Students Inspired by Sports, and I have like 8 other clubs that I have listed on my UAGC Connect page for me personally. So I mean, it is definitely very beneficial to take a look at literally all of the clubs. There's so many, and I kind of also relate to Dr. O because I joined UAGC for my master's program at the beginning of 2022, and then now I'm in the PsyD program. And so I've been with UAGC for like going on 3 years starting in January. So and the Psych Club has been a solid resource for support and community, and really accepted me from the first meeting I ever attended. And so it's joining and finding a club is very, very beneficial to your success and having the support that we all need to achieve our goals and our dreams. So I just wanted to add that.
So,
I was just going to say, if persons are considering different academic majors or pathways, try a club in those disciplines so that you can interact with students who are in that major, possibly faculty who are in that major, and then you can determine if you want to switch to that major, as opposed to just making a decision off the cuff like I'm in or I'm out. So explore, like you said, join more than one. And joining doesn't have to be a lifetime commitment. Maybe you're only there for a few months, but it gave you the knowledge you needed to find something else.
that's good. I will add that you won't feel like there's a sense of belonging for a long term you'll want to be a part of it long term because you meet colleagues, you understand, you become a part of their life, even through the meetings. And, you know, I just think it's life changing, you know, so yeah.
In the chat, there's a lot of amazing positive comments that this panel has been incredibly inspiring and really epitomizes what belonging is. So thank you all, they said, for sharing your time and your stories today. And then Vanessa has also dropped her email in the chat. So for any students who are interested in learning more, you can reach out to her, or any faculty and staff who would love a classroom announcement or to even learn more about clubs and organizations. Reach out to her directly. She's got some great information for you as well. Because I think one of the points that really struck out with me in this presentation today is, you know, the person who reached out to you personally to get you involved, and multiple times. I think that was a great thing for me to hear as staff. You know, we identify someone, you'd be a great fit for this, but sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement, but it's completely worth it.
Mm-hmm. I will say, Miss Davis, that it all started with the symposium. So that's an encouragement for students as well. The symposium is where Dr. Ballard actually heard me. And then that's when the connection started to get me into the Human Service Club. So I'm telling you, UAGC is set up to where kids, students, adults can get connected. They just got to step out on a limb and do it. So it's really awesome.
That's how I made a lot of my connections also.
Great point, great advice. I know we only have a couple more minutes to see if any final questions or comments come up. One final question I had for Sharissa was more about this book club. What are the types of books that you read? And it's nice to hear that there's different offshoots of these clubs as well.
Yes. So for me, I actually got this idea from one of the other clubs, which I believe was Lifting Our Voices. And I started thinking, you know, what could really help is if we could use a book to guide some of these conversations. And so we thought we're just going to use psychology, you know, centered subject type books. But then I thought, you know, we should open it up to even fictional books. And like currently we're reading One More Lie by Amy Lloyd, which is it's a fiction story, but it encompasses this very complex type of storyline of this 28-year-old woman with this very traumatic history, and she was in prison and she's being released from prison, and now we're diving into all of these crazy little psychological aspects that we can really discuss and consider, and then where we talk about our expectations on what we expect more from the book. So before that, our first book that we used was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which was also a super great read with a really, really deep tone to it. And then after that, we did Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. So we have covered 3 really complex books, and it's been really great at cultivating deep psychological discussions. So I definitely look forward to carrying it on further. So, and if anyone's interested in joining us, please feel free. You can join in the middle of a book. That's perfectly fine with us. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll add those to my list. Great recommendations.
Justine had his hand raised.
Yes. Justine, if you want to come off mute, we'd welcome your comment or question.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for the presentation. I think that belonging and participating in any type of convention in online learning is something that is not only undervalued, but also not really in regular conversation, and is assumed that is something that is lost in online learning. And while it seems like it might be a pro or con depending on your personality type for determining brick and mortar or online learning for yourself, I want to say that as a personal experience, I've been especially grateful for the opportunity. I just recently joined I've been in Psych Club, haven't had time to attend the meetings until recently, which has been amazing. And the book club has been very eye-opening in so many ways, because there have been so many levels of isolation, not just in academia, but in society. And I had some personal issues and past employment experiences that left me incredibly isolated. So online learning and now experiencing an online community club has been an amazing bridge. So it's been a great way for me to step out of that isolation and break through a lot of what was holding me back, and has provided a great scaffolding for redeveloping social interactions and social skills. So again, I just want to thank all of you for your time and bringing awareness and bringing the time and everything that went into your presentations and bringing that out for us today.
Thank you so much, Justine. That was amazing to hear as we wrap up this amazing session. And so with that, thank you to this amazing panel and the audience for your participation in today's session. Also, thank you to Kingsley behind the scenes. Please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and to share your feedback on your conference experience. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your conference.